Alright, Motley's Garage fans, I'm going to remove the driver's side airbag. This is a very dangerous procedure. I do not recommend anyone doing it unless you are a trained, certified airbag mechanic. Having said that, I've disconnected the battery and I've pulled the little plugs, and I think that's a 10mm nut on both sides to remove the airbag module. I also put airbags on in case this thing deploys. It shouldn't. You're supposed to wait more than 60 seconds for the internal voltage on the airbag sensor system to discharge, so we should be good to go. I'm not going to show the removal here. I'll just show it to you when it's removed. So this is an 8mm bolt in there. The other thing to do when you remove this, I highly recommend stay out of the line of fire, and I also recommend wearing earplugs, which I'm wearing right now, and be very conscious about being away from the airbag when you remove it, and also when you disconnect the cable. And once the airbag module's out, I'd probably move it way over to a remote area so it won't bother me. Well, this is the airbag is out, stored over there. It's fine. You cannot test, repeat, you cannot test the airbag directly. Do not attempt it, or you will deploy the airbag violently, causing injury. Do not do that. Anyway, that is the sliding connector for the airbag. That's what they call it. It's a gray, orange, and a gray and white wire, as the wiring diagram, which I'll show you, indicates. This is the connector for the horn. It has green and orange and blue. That's all blue. It looks kind of shiny in the light, but that's just two blue wires and two orange wires. I'm not sure why there's two, but there's two. So the next thing we're going to do is test the continuity from here back to the airbag module, which hides down in that corner. And I'll show you those on the manual. So there's the airbag module, and there's a connector up there which I'm going to have to remove so I can test everything. So I'll probably get this out of the way, this item, so I can access that more easily. Basically, we're just going to do an ohm test, and then when I'm done with that, that's all continuous. I can actually go back. There's an airbag tester module. I won't use that today. I'll use a 2 ohm resistor and see if it turns off my airbag light. My code is 3-2 that I'm getting. 3 flashes of the airbag sensor, then 2. And I'll show you where that is, but I'm not going to light it up now since I have the battery off. And then we'll go from there. So what I've done here is put a shorting plug across the airbag contacts, and then I'm going to go back and check it at the connector that I exposed over here to see if I have continuity. Alright, I just checked those two connections. It's the one with the wire sticking out, and then the one just above the, it's where that little spring clip is. It's kind of a halfway hidden hole, but it's this one and the one right next to it, and they show continuity, so tells me the airbag module is bad. Looks like somebody was in there before doing this test and they just left it, but the entire wiring from here on out is intact, because this goes out to those two connector, the one connector, 2 pins that go to the airbag on the steering wheel. Well, after about an hour and a half of screwing around, I discovered that little slider connector right there, you see that at the bottom, if it connects over to here and shorts this circuit. So if you don't push a little piece of wood in there to separate it from this wire, you'll never get the loop resistance measured when you go through and short on the far side. So I've done that exercise, and I'm getting 7 ohms of resistance, which is probably okay. I'm going to see, I have about 2/10, 3/10 that I am got in my leads. So anyway, I've kind of gone as far as I can now. I'm convinced the connection is making contact, so I need to move on and get a real. The last thing I have to do is put a fixed resistance, it's called a airbag simulator, back over on the connector and start up the car and see if the airbag code clears. So I want to show you a little something. I added the shorting line to the airbag connector that goes all the way back to the airbag sensor module, and when I turn on the car, let's watch the airbag light, which is that far left one, and it goes out and it stays out. So although it's probably a little lower resistance than what it should be, it seems to say that it's okay. I get no errors, so that's a good sign. At this point I need to just buy another airbag. You can't buy them new anymore, they're used on the market, and we will do that and try it out. That's the next thing to do. I've checked every other part of the system, series connection all the way around and back, knowing that that little clip shorts the two, so you have to be careful about that back at the connector. And shorting this, which is sort of an airbag simulator, but indeed it's a little on the high side for resistance. The reading I got back there, which was about 7 ohms, but I'm gonna just have a little faith that that's all okay and go from there. Because if the short works, it's most likely that the airbag will work. And if not, then I have high resistance somewhere, and the only other place you can actually fix it is something called a sliding, which is under the steering wheel, which makes all the connections to the steering wheel. Now the fact that all the other objects work, the horn, the cruise control, it indicates that the sliding is probably okay and I can move on. But the airbag relies on a certain value of resistance for it to say that it's okay, but I think I'm pretty certain that that airbag has failed. All right. One thing I wanted to note was I used this, sorry for the shadows, 1997 Econoline Electrical and Vacuum Troubleshooting Manual. It's not a troubleshooting manual. There is no troubleshooting in it at all. It's a diagram of all the wiring, but it also has some diagrams of the component views. And in here you'll notice that the airbag diagnostic module is there, seen on page 151-12, and the wiring for the airbag, I believe I have it right here. There's the looking in at the connector diagram. Actually, I'm wrong. This is looking in at on the module side. The connector would be the mirror of all that. So I located the gray and white, G, Y, and W here, and the gray and orange here, those two wires. If you flip the connector on its side, you can pop off a little cap and look at the wires coming out of the connector and identify those. So one of these, as I mentioned and showed, had a little shorting thing that shorted it back to there, and they don't tell you that. So it shorts back there, this little tab that's spring-loaded. You have to push it down with a stick of wood. So I just wanted to show you that. The airbag module is, wish I can see if I can cover that there, a little bit better lighting. The airbag module is on page 46-1 and 46-2. Let's cover all that up, give you better lighting. Terrible lighting here. And it just shows where everything is. And here's the airbag, and this is a clock spring, which is just a rotating contact so that the steering wheel can turn and the wires don't get twisted. This thing just, there's a sliding circular contact behind the steering wheel, which I haven't gotten to. And if the new airbag that I put in here doesn't solve the sensor problem, because it looks at the resistance here to make sure that it's right, this sensor does that, then I need to perhaps clean these contacts. There's really no other places where that could really go wrong. So we'll just have to see. Yeah, that wiring came from here. It goes all the way up through the steering column. So there's a lot of wire covered between here and there, and that's where the connector is. So that connector was shown back there and back and here. So that's all hidden in this region right here. So we'll see if that's needed. I'm just going to buy one. They're used with a guarantee that they work for about $67 on eBay, and that's a pretty good price. And I'll just store this one in a box.